The city never slept. It buzzed with neon lights, the hum of traffic, the constant shuffle of ambition. People rushed to work, to meetings, to parties. Their lives wound tightly around deadlines and desires. But in the middle of that restless current, there was a woman who moved like she belonged to another world. Her name was Selena. When she walked into a room, conversations faltered. Coffee cups paused mid-air. Men lost their words. Women felt a chill they couldn't explain. Her beauty was not the ordinary kind, no. It was a beauty so polished, so precise, it seemed designed. Her skin glowed under the faintest light, smooth and flawless as though sculpted from satin. Her eyes were amber dark, always holding a flicker of mischief, like fireflies trapped behind glass. And her voice, low, melodic, every syllable poured out like wine in candlelight, lingered long after she spoke. Selena never hurried. She floated. Every step deliberate, every smile calculated, every tilt of her head an invitation that said, "Look at me, want me, lose yourself in me." And they did. Men, wealthy men, powerful men, lonely men, competed like boys in a playground whenever she was near. The barista at the corner cafe slipped her free lattes just for the pleasure of her smile. The gym instructor scheduled her private lessons at half price. Businessmen fought to carry her shopping bags. Strangers on the subway offered her their seats, even if they'd been standing for hours. But Selena never gave herself away too quickly. That was her gift, her art. She dangled attention like a jewel in sunlight. One glance, then retreat. One laugh, then silence. She gave them just enough to hunger, but never enough to be full. Her apartment, perched high above the city streets, overflowed with evidence of her power. Boxes of jewelry still sealed, designer gowns untouched in closets, roses wilting in crystal vases. Luxury handbags lined up like trophies of conquest. Her neighbors whispered, speculating how she afforded such finery when she seemed never to work a day in her life. The answer was simple: the city itself paid for her. Or rather, the men within it. To the casual observer, Selena was a dream woman. To those under her spell, she was everything: muse, mistress, fantasy, salvation. But to the few who saw through the glitter in her smile, there was something unsettling beneath it all. Her beauty was flawless, yes, but flawless in the way of a mask. Too polished, too precise. Now and then, in the corner of her eye, in the way she lingered in the shadows just a second too long, there was a flicker. A hint that what the world adored might not be entirely human. But in the sleepless city, no one dared look too closely. And so, Selena thrived. The mornings in Selena's world did not begin with alarm clocks or hurried commutes. They began with deliveries. First, the knock of a courier at her door. Then another. And another. By noon, her living room looked like a showroom of excess. Towering boxes tied with satin ribbons, bouquets so massive they could choke the sunlight from her balcony, and velvet cases that revealed diamonds so large they looked unreal. Outside, sleek cars lined the curb, gleaming under the sun. Some were rentals, borrowed by desperate admirers eager to impress. Others, shockingly, were permanent gifts, keys handed to her with trembling hands and foolish smiles. Selena would glide among the offerings in her red dress, a queen inspecting her tribute. She never seemed surprised. It was as though she expected the world to bow to her beauty. And in truth, it did. Men competed with one another like children in a cruel game. One would send her the newest smartphone. Another, not to be outdone, would send her two. A businessman once flew her to Paris for an afternoon, only to watch in despair as she returned and accepted jewelry from someone else that very night. Selena never had to work. Not a single hour. Her rent was paid, her wardrobe overflowing, her vacations sponsored. Even the glass of wine in her hand had been bought for her by someone who dreamed of her attention. But behind the glitter, there was an unspoken cost. The men who bankrolled her lifestyle returned to their homes empty, resentful, or ashamed. Husbands came home late, too distracted to notice their wives' tears. Fathers missed their children's birthdays while chasing Selina's laughter. Some even risked their businesses, draining accounts they had no right to touch, just for a fleeting smile. Selina did not care. She was the storm, and they were her rain, falling endlessly, feeding her world of indulgence. And she drank it all in, never satisfied, always hungry for more. Because deep within her, beneath the velvet and perfume, was a shadow. A hunger that gifts alone could never fill. Selina's beauty was more than skin deep, it was a weapon. A single glance from her could weaken the strongest resolve. A smile, and men forgot their vows, their duties, their very names. But her beauty was only the bait. The true devastation lay in what followed. There was Richard, a respected lawyer, known for his sharp mind and unshakable discipline. Judges admired him, clients trusted him, opponents feared him. But then Richard met Selina. Soon, the courtroom saw his chair empty more often than filled. He skipped trials, postponed hearings, even lost high-profile cases, all because he was sitting in her living room, waiting for a laugh, a touch, a word that never promised commitment. His reputation crumbled, his clients abandoned him, and the man once destined for the bench became a cautionary tale whispered among his colleagues. Then there was Daniel. Young, ambitious, a banker with a promising future. He had been careful all his life, every dollar, every investment meticulously guarded. But Selina's appetite was vast, and Daniel wanted to be the one to satisfy it. At first, he spent what he had. Then, what he didn't. And then, recklessly, he dipped into his clients' accounts. For a while, Selina's smile was his reward. But truth has a way of surfacing. The scandal broke, and Daniel's name was dragged through the mud. Overnight, he became a criminal, his career gone, his dreams scattered like dust in the wind. And then, Michael. Michael was not wealthy, nor powerful, but he had something more precious, a family. A loyal wife, a young daughter, a simple but happy home. Yet even he fell. Selina did not need his riches, she wanted his devotion. And he gave it, piece by piece. When his pockets ran dry, desperation drove him to the unthinkable. He sold his wife's heirloom jewelry, priceless in sentiment, to buy Selina pearls. When the truth came to light, his marriage collapsed. His wife left, his daughter turned away from him, and Michael was left alone, clutching pearls that mocked him with their cold, empty gleam. Everywhere Selina went, families fractured. Everywhere she smiled, careers crumbled. Everywhere she lingered, dignity withered. And through it all, she thrived. She fed not on the gifts themselves, but on the chaos they birthed, the tears, the ruin, the despair. For to Selina, every broken man was not a tragedy. He was a trophy. The city buzzed with its usual rhythm, horns blaring, lights flickering, and men whispering Selina's name like it was a secret prayer. 4 years, she had been the queen of their desires, the untouchable goddess cloaked in silk and perfume. Men ruined themselves for her smile. They gave her jewels, homes, and even their pride. She was irresistible. Until he came. Adrian. He wasn't like the others. When he moved into the apartment building next door with his wife, Sarah, no one noticed much at first. He wasn't flashy. He didn't arrive in sleek black cars or wear suits with gold cufflinks. Instead, he carried his own boxes up the stairs, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his face calm, focused, grounded. Selina noticed him immediately. There was something in his eyes, steady, clear, unshaken. A kind of quiet strength she hadn't seen in years. He didn't glance at her curves, didn't falter when she crossed his path in a flowing red dress, didn't even flinch when her perfume lingered around him like a spell. For the first time, Selina felt invisible. And she hated it. Adrian was not wealthy, at least not in the currency she understood. His gifts were not diamonds or designer cars, but the sound of his laughter with his wife, the way his hand lingered protectively on Sarah's back, the way his gaze never wandered. He carried himself with dignity, loyalty, and presence, currencies more valuable than gold in a world of temptation. Selina's hunger shifted. At first, it was curiosity. She tried brushing against him in the hallway, her voice low, her smile honey-sweet. Nothing. She tried inviting him for coffee, her hand brushing his as she passed him the cup. Still nothing. His eyes never softened, never betrayed weakness. And then curiosity turned into obsession. Each rejection fed her anger. How could he not see her? How could he not want her, when every other man in the city had bent their will to her touch? Selina told herself it was a game. She would seduce him, as she had seduced them all. She would unravel him piece by piece until his loyalty crumbled. But the harder she pulled, the firmer he stood. And for the first time in her life, the seductress began to doubt the reach of her own power. Selina was not accustomed to rejection. For years, she had learned the art of weaving temptation into the smallest gestures, a glance, a smile, a lingering touch, and men responded like puppets pulled by invisible strings. But Adrian was different. Every encounter with him left her simmering in a mixture of fascination and fury. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline and bathed the streets in a molten glow, Selina devised a new plan. If seduction through charm and chance encounters failed, she would try the most intimate and timeless offering, a meal. She spent hours preparing. Though she hardly cooked for herself, her meals were often delivered by the very men she conquered. This time she made the effort. The scent of herbs filled her apartment, mingling with the heavy perfume she wore on her skin. She dressed carefully, choosing a silk gown of deep emerald that caught the light like liquid fire. Every detail was meant to whisper one message: "This is for you." When the meal was ready, she carried the dish across the hallway to Adrian's door. He opened it within seconds. He always did. Selina smiled warmly, tilting her head, letting her hair fall in a deliberate cascade over her shoulder. "Adrian," she said, her voice smooth as honey, "I made too much dinner tonight. I thought you and your wife might enjoy some." The scent of roasted spices and slow-cooked meat rose between them like an invisible lure. Adrian's eyes softened, and he smiled, polite, genuine. He did not leer. He did not hesitate. He simply said, "Thank you, Selina. That's very kind of you. But my wife already cooked tonight. I don't eat outside when home is full." The words struck her like a slap, though his tone was gentle. Selina forced a laugh, light and airy, as though his refusal meant nothing. But inside, her pride bristled. She extended the dish a little farther, her eyes locking on his. "Just a taste, then? To show appreciation for a neighbor." Adrian shook his head, still smiling, but firm. "It wouldn't be right. Sarah waits for me. We always eat together." With that, he inclined his head respectfully and stepped back inside. The door closed. Selina stood frozen in the hallway, the weight of the dish in her arms suddenly unbearable. No one had ever turned her away so cleanly, so completely, and with such ease. Her chest tightened, fury and disbelief battling in her veins. Was his loyalty so unshakable? Or was he mocking her, pretending strength until he inevitably fell like all the others? She returned to her apartment, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Each step was a reminder of his rejection. Each breath, a spark feeding the fire of her obsession. That night, Selena did not sleep. She sat by her window, watching Adrian's apartment across the courtyard. The glow of warm light framed the silhouette of a man and a woman seated together at their small dining table, laughing, sharing, eating. What he refused from her, he devoured from his wife. And that truth stung more than the rejection itself. The clock struck midnight, and silence fell heavy over the neighborhood. Curtains were drawn, lights extinguished, and only the occasional bark of a stray dog disturbed the stillness of the street. But Selena was awake. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring into the darkness, her hands clenched so tightly the veins along her arms pulsed with fury. Adrian's rejections replayed in her mind like a cruel melody. Every smile he reserved for his wife, every word of loyalty he had spoken, echoed louder than applause in her ears. Her lips curled into a sneer. If she couldn't have him, then his wife would pay the price. Selena rose gracefully, though her movements carried a strange stiffness now, as though her skin itself resisted her. She slipped silently out of her apartment, her heels abandoned, her bare feet whispering against the cold tiles of the hallway. The night air outside was cool, brushing her face as she crossed the courtyard toward Adrian's home. The closer she came, the more unnatural her body began to feel. Her pulse thundered in her ears. A prickling sensation spread across her arms, her back, her legs. And then, a crack. Her skin split. She staggered to the shadows at the corner of the building as her true nature clawed its way free. Her nails elongated into curved talons. Her hair writhed like living strands before collapsing into glistening scales. Her limbs twisted, stretched, coiled. Her dress shredded against the expanding form beneath. The woman known as Selena was gone. In her place, a monstrous serpentine beast uncoiled under the moonlight. Her body gleamed with iridescent black-green scales, her eyes burned with venomous rage, and her tongue flicked through fangs long and curved like daggers. She crawled forward, her every movement silent, predatory. Her plan was simple, swift, brutal. She would find Sarah, Adrian's beloved wife, sink her fangs deep, and let venom drain the life from her veins. She imagined the horror in Adrian's eyes as he cradled his dying love. She imagined him broken, vulnerable at last, left with no one but her. Selena reached the door. Her scaled body pressed against it, her forked tongue flicking in the air, sensing warmth, life, happiness just beyond. She reared back, coiled muscles tightening, ready to strike her way inside. Tonight, the wife would fall. Tonight, Adrian would finally understand what it meant to reject Selena. But little did she know, something far greater and more terrifying than herself was waiting within. The night air seemed to freeze as Selena's scaled body pressed against the door. Her tongue flicked eagerly, tasting the warmth of human life on the other side. She coiled back, every muscle primed to strike. But then, the door creaked open. And there she was. Sarah. She stood on the porch in her nightgown, bathed in the soft silver light of the moon. Her hair spilled over her shoulders, her eyes calm, steady, and almost knowing. There was no scream, no flinch, no panicked retreat. She simply looked at the monstrous serpent beast crouched before her, and smiled. That smile made Selena hesitate. Just for a breath. A cruel hiss rattled from her throat as she reared higher, towering over the woman who dared meet her gaze without fear. But then something shifted. Sarah's calm expression deepened into something far older, far more powerful than Selena could comprehend. Her body shivered, no, rippled, as if her human skin were only a veil. Her bones cracked, her form stretched, and scales burst forth in a brilliant cascade of molten bronze. In seconds, the gentle wife was gone. Before Selena's stunned eyes rose a monster serpent far greater, far more majestic than her own. Sarah's body coiled like a river of bronze fire, her scales glinting in the moonlight with an ancient glow, as if they had drunk from the sun itself. Her eyes blazed like twin embers, sharp and unyielding. Selena recoiled, her coils retreating instinctively across the porch. For the first time, fear slithered through her veins. She had thought herself the predator, the devourer. But standing before her was a power she could neither seduce nor defeat. Sarah's hiss thundered through the night like a storm wind. Selena lunged first, striking wildly, desperate to sink her venom into her rival. But Sarah moved with the grace of something ancient. Her massive body lashed forward, pinning Selena to the wooden boards. A screech tore from Selena's throat as she thrashed, but Sarah's jaws opened wide, terrifying, unrelenting. In one swift, decisive strike, Sarah struck. Her fangs pierced, her throat expanded, and with a single, merciless swallow, the beastly seductress was consumed whole. Silence returned. Only the sound of leaves rustling in the midnight wind remained. Sarah's massive coils slowly unwound, her bronze glow softening. Her body shrank, rippling back into her human form, her nightgown unblemished, her hair cascading once again over her shoulders. She stood alone on the porch, serene as though nothing had transpired, her eyes warm once more. With a final glance at the moonlit street, Elena whispered a chant of protection over her home and stepped quietly back inside. The door closed. Selena the temptress, the serpent, the devourer of men, was no more. And Adrian would never know the battle his beloved had fought in silence, or the strength that kept their love unbroken. The house was silent once more. Inside, Adrian sat at his desk, a lamp glowing faintly as he worked through his notes for tomorrow's lecture. He had heard nothing, not the hiss, not the clash, not the storm that had raged and ended at his very doorstep. When Sarah walked back into the living room, her nightgown flowing as though untouched by the night's ordeal, Adrian glanced up. He smiled, the same gentle, unshaken smile he had worn every day of their marriage. "There you are," he said warmly. "I thought you'd gone to check on the garden." Sarah returned his smile, her eyes soft and luminous, concealing the fire that still lingered within them. "Everything is fine," she whispered. And it was. Adrian returned to his books, blissfully unaware of the danger that had slithered into their lives. He never knew the way temptation had circled him, never knew how his steadfast devotion had unknowingly shielded him, never knew the ancient battle his wife had fought on his behalf. But Sarah knew. She settled beside him, her hand brushing his. The warmth between them was enough, quiet, enduring, and unshakable. The kind of love no seduction could corrupt, no serpent could conquer. Outside, the moon shone silver over the quiet town. No trace of Selena remained. The men who once languished under her spell would wake the next morning strangely lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from their souls. They would never understand what force had broken their chains. Selena, the enchantress, the destroyer, was gone, devoured by a truth greater than her lies. And all that remained was love. Not all battles are fought with swords. Some are waged in silence, between light and darkness, between devotion and desire. Selena thrived on weakness, on the emptiness of wandering hearts. But when she met the unshakable bond of Adrian and Sarah, her power faltered. For in the end, true love is the strongest shield. And even serpents, no matter how cunning, will always fall before it.